Oh, time to check the messages here. It's probably just more fan mails. Oh no! Well, if I say yes, well then I will concede to what God cannot do, but if I say no, then I also concede to what God cannot do. However shall I respond? Hello, human. Come on. Alright, so I find it interesting that you seemingly went out of your way to find and use an outdated and overused argument, yet you never pursued the logical response to your own argument. I say this all the time. If you're willing to ask questions, you should also be willing to pursue the answers to the questions you ask. So this question is a classic straw man. You're essentially asking if God can beat himself up in a fist fight. It's absurd. It's sheer nonsense. First, there is a problem with the premise of the question. Now, while it is true that God can do anything that is logically possible and consistent with his own nature, it's absurd to suggest that he would do anything that's logically impossible and against his consistent nature. For example, God cannot lie. He cannot be tempted. He cannot cease to exist. Just as it's logically impossible to make a one-sided triangle or a circle that's a square, it is also logically impossible to make a rock too heavy to be moved by an omnipotent God, because it's an actual impossibility that violates the first principle of non-contradiction. God will not contradict himself and the logical rules he established. God can, and will supersede that which is natural in order to do what is supernatural. But even the supernatural will not be logically impossible, for while God can cause a human voice to come out from a donkey, God cannot make the donkey speak and be silent at the same time and in the same sense. So you need to stick to the true definition of what omnipotence is and not try to change the goalpost by changing the definition of what omnipotence means. Second, you claim to be an agnostic theist, but there's a problem with that. Agnosticism comes from two Greek words, a meaning no or without, and gnosis meaning knowledge. It literally means no knowledge or without knowledge. And there are two forms of agnosticism. One, God is unknown. Two, God is unknowable and cannot be known. And herein lies the problem with your claim of being an agnostic theist. A theist believes that an infinite, personal God created the universe and miraculously intervenes in it from time to time. But to claim that God has intervened, currently intervenes, or will intervene is to make a knowledge claim about God. However, one cannot say God is not that unless a person has knowledge of that. How can a person know what does not apply to God unless that person knows what does apply? The negation would imply a prior affirmation. Unless it is impossible to know the real, it is unnecessary to disclaim the possibility of all cognitive knowledge of it or to dissuade people from making any judgments about it. Therefore, by your own logic, you cannot claim that the Bible is not God's Word, because you would need to know what God's Word is in order to say that the Bible is not God's Word. Third, by your own logic, if one cannot believe anything written in a book, then you cannot believe anything you read from a book, even if it's a math book or a science book. However, truth correlates with objective reality, and we know that many things written in many books are true. Your claim is just absurd. Furthermore, there's a good reason to believe what's written in the Bible, because one, it's been proven to be reliable and accurate. As it turns out, I wrote an article on that. And two, since the God of the Bible is all-knowing, all-good, and all-powerful, it follows that he would not inspire books for the faith and practice of believers down through the centuries and then fail to preserve them. Lost, inspired books would be a lapse in God's providence. The God who knows and numbers the stars by name and cares for the sparrows and numbers the hairs on your head will certainly care for his scriptures so that his word will not be lost nor return void. In short, if God inspired the scriptures, and he did, and you can read all about that in the article I published here, God will preserve them. Why? Because God is omnipotent, and preserving his word in writing is logically possible and consistent with his own nature. In conclusion, your argument fails because you're arguing from what you do not know. However, I'm arguing from what I do know. And I will tell you, just as Paul told the people of Areopagus who worship an unknown God, therefore, what you worship in ignorance, this I proclaim to you. The Creator is the God of the Bible. I know because I had once been an atheist until the Lord revealed himself to me and saved me from myself. You can read all about my testimony here, so I challenge you, listen to my testimony, and then seek the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. It's not enough to believe that God exists. Even demons believe that God exists. We must also place our trust in the Lord for our salvation, which cannot be earned by our own effort. If you seek Him, He will let you find Him. But if you forsake Him, He will forsake you. The Lord desires a genuine relationship with you. Seek, and you will find.